Lynn Boylan, Sinn Féin has been giving quite a bit of advice to the Taoiseach on this. You think he should go to these difficult areas?
Absolutely. I mean, this is the opportunity that he has. He's the Taoiseach of the country. He's going to have this bilateral meeting. I think you need to get a balance between, obviously you don't want a repeat of what happened with Zelensky last Friday. I think everybody's jaw was on the floor looking at that. But equally, I think that Keir Starmer was far too subservient in the way that he approached the meeting. Donald Trump is trying to bamboozle everybody by throwing out lots of different ideas and suggestions and things that he's going to do and not do. And the thing we need to do is have clear heads, stay calm, don't have any knee-jerk reactions, but we need to be very clear about where Ireland stands. So Ireland supports Ukraine 100%, and that's fine. But we also support the people of Palestine, their right to self-determination and the right to have their human rights upheld. And we need to be very clear on that. And equally, we need to represent the undocumented that are living out in America and talk about trade and that reciprocal relationship we have with America, because it's not all one way. So I hope he will take advantage of that, but he's not going to do a repeat of Keir Starmer, which was very subservient.
Some people might suggest that you have some neck in giving advice and telling him to go there and tell him, bring up Gaza and bring up Ukraine and bring up the undocumented Irish, while you've decided yourselves to, on principle, stay away.
The Taoiseach and the bilateral meeting is very, very different to the wider St. Patrick's Day events. And I think anybody who heard what Donald Trump said about Gaza and making it a Riviera and effectively ethnically cleansing the Gaza Strip, I don't think you can go in good conscience to just enjoy the St. Patrick's Day festivities. We will obviously make the case for United Ireland. We're regularly back and forth to the United States. But the Taoiseach is in a different position. He has a bilateral meeting in the Oval Office. We've seen these bilateral meetings now with various different leaders. And he has an opportunity to be very clear in that Ireland stands up for international law, regardless of where that international law is being breached. If a country's being occupied, it has the right to defend itself. It has the right to self-determination. So we can't have a double standard when it comes to Ukraine and to Palestine.
Alan Shatter, how do you think that will go?
I'm trying to cope with what Lynn just said because it's so contradictory in so many ways. I have a long memory in politics. I remember when Sinn Féin were very anxious to get an invitation to the White House. I remember when we needed the United States to bring about peace on this island. I remember when your friends and the provos were murdering and bombing and killing people, and we had to get them to stop doing that. And the United States and Bill Clinton and George Mitchell and various other people made a huge contribution. Now, I think it's quite extraordinary that you actually, to use a good old Jewish word, have the chutzpah to be telling the Taoiseach what he should be doing in circumstances where, quite clearly, if Sinn Féin believed any of that, they could have visited Washington themselves. Now, let's deal with one particular issue that you asked me, what should the Taoiseach do? I think he should travel with great care, because I think the government is in real difficulty in the United States. I've just spent 3 months in the United States. And they find it, the level of the Irish government's hostility to Israel. Israel had been attacked by Hamas in October of 2023. Hamas having initiated and created a war. And it's well known in Washington, it's well known in the United States that the Irish government has spent a lot of its time demonising Israel. Now, I'm not saying everything Israel does is correct, but I think the Taoiseach is going to have enormous difficulty. He may not want to raise the issue, but I can well imagine sitting in the White House with the press corps there, he is going to be asked about that issue. And I think he has a very difficult explanation to give, because it goes beyond the hostility towards the Israeli state under attack. It extends to the extraordinary extent to which the Irish government has in the last 16 months embraced Iran.
OK. Matt Cooper, should he be principled or pragmatic?
Well, Donald Trump tends to take control of the situation in the Oval Office and the White House. It won't necessarily be for Micheál Martin to decide what gets to be on the agenda. One thing that's been very noticeable...
Well, he'll go in with a cue card for himself for what he's going to be saying.
Well, he may do, but the script gets torn up. I mean, we've got to remember that Donald Trump is an unconventional politician. He was maybe more restrained during his first term by the people around him. There are no such restraints this time. He has turned the Oval Office events with the foreign leaders into mini TV shows. There are press conferences that become TV dramas. When he finished with Zelensky the other day, he made reference to the fact this has made good television. This is part of his shtick. This is the thing that Donald Trump gets off on. He's also an unconventional businessman. People talk about him, but most businessmen don't act in the way that he did. His performance with Zelensky the other day was almost like Soprano-style mob boss deciding to sandbag the man who would come in. So these are the difficulties that Micheál Martin is going to face.
How should he play it?
Okay, there's a few things in relation to that. He's got to ask himself, does he do the people of Gaza any good by lobbying on their behalf? Does he do the people of Ukraine any good by taking on Trump? Will he in any way change Donald Trump's mind? He's also got to take into
Are you
consideration...
suggesting he meant that there's no point in going there?
I'm not suggesting there's no point in going there, because there are other reasons for going there as well. There's Ireland's interest
No, not
in
going
going
there.
there.
Sorry, going there in terms of bringing up Ukraine, bringing up Gaza, raising those issues.
He
with
may
them.
be better off not bringing them up, but he has to be prepared to respond when they are brought up. I suspect, as Alan says, Israel is more likely to be brought up than Ukraine is, partly because of the influence of Howard Lutnick, his Commerce Secretary, who is a major supporter of Israel and who has been one of those people who has been making comments about Ireland. He has been very exercised by the trade imbalance, as he sees it, about the tax revenues that Ireland have been taking. And he's also maybe got a little bit of a grudge against Ireland. His company, Cantor Fitzgerald, has just been hit with a €450,000 fine by the Central Bank of Ireland. The fear you would have to have is that he and others will be in Trump's ear and will wind him up, and that Trump thinks that maybe giving a sandbagging to Ireland would make good television for one particular audience.
Neil Richmond, there must be a serious game role-playing around this at the moment in the Taoiseach's office. It's a very challenging prospect, isn't it now?
Absolutely. Being in government is hard. Having meetings with President Trump or any world leader is hard, but that's why we seek to be in government. We have an opportunity over the next week to 10 days where 15 US states will be visited by 10 Irish government ministers for a full programme of economic, political, diplomatic, cultural activity, our largest ever one in the US. The centrepiece of which will, on the 12th of March, be the Taoiseach's meeting with President Trump.
Should he bring up Gaza? Should he bring up Ukraine? And how should he play that?
Yeah, no, I think he should bring up all issues, and I think he needs to be very careful how he does it. And I accept all the comments made by those on the panel, but what's clear is the events in Ukraine are in Ireland's interests. It matters to the Irish people what happens next in the next iteration of this war that's been going on in its current phase in 2022. We saw what happened with our energy prices. We saw what happened with our food prices. It's quite clear Ireland has a very clear position when it comes to wanting peace in the Middle East. And the US has a very key role. It is the US that has given the guarantee to the current, albeit vulnerable, ceasefire. And we'll repeat our preference for a two-state
solution. If Micheál Martin
solution.
goes in there and starts speaking up for Zelensky, in circumstances where even today, again, he's out there criticising Zelensky, that's not going to play well for us, is it?
Well, the Taoiseach's responsibility is to speak up for Irish policy, to respond to any questions and no doubt accusations that will come, but make it quite clear that we have a very, very important bilateral relationship with the US on economic terms. And the Commerce Secretary, Lutnick, has definitely said a lot about the war in the Middle East, but even more in relation to tariffs and taxation. That's going to be a key issue. But I have absolute faith in the Taoiseach, the Taoiseach, and my ministerial colleagues will go to the US.
I think we're not talking about the elephant in the room yet. And the elephant in the room when it comes to Donald Trump is looking at what our tax arrangements are that facilitate American multinationals really locating most of their profits in Ireland and escaping the American tax system, and producing products in Ireland which they then export to the United States. If you look at for the year ending December 2023, the surplus to our benefit in the context of exports was 31 billion. At the end of 2024, it had gone up to just over 50 billion.
But Alan, that's just goods. So when you take in services, it's far more even.
I appreciate that's goods.
I think it's important.
But these are figures that are important. Now, what's important for people in this country is that American multinationals continue to locate here, continue to create jobs here, that their profitability, which is keeping our social services, our health services, and our housing construction funding going, that doesn't collapse. And if that was to collapse, if Trump reduces corporate taxation in the United States, and if he puts pressure on some of these multinationals to stop exporting from Ireland into the States and to actually manufacture in Ireland, we have a major economic problem.